Hey everybody, so for today's movie review, I'm going to talk about the film G.I. Joe Retaliation. It came out just recently. It was actually postponed. It was originally going to come out in June of 2012, but it's been rumored that they postponed it, so let me fix this angle here. They postponed it. Actually, no, let's go over here some more. Get the VHS tapes out of the way. So they postponed it due to like a 3D conversion, and I guess there was rumors that they wanted to get they wanted to have Channing Tatum be in more scenes in the movie since his films in 2012 made a lot of money. So it was kind of a star power issue kind of thing. So they postponed the movie to just recently. And basically, if you've seen the first G.I. Joe film, this film basically, I wouldn't say it takes place immediately afterward, but it does. There is a continuation after that film that this film plays off of. So basically, if you did see the first film, you would know that. And I guess this is a spoiler to the first movie if you haven't seen the first one, but I mean, you were given since 2009 to watch the first film by now. Um, Basically, one of the Cobra members, one of the lead Cobra members, I don't even remember his name. Um, you can tell I didn't like the first G.I. Joe film. Um, he basically uses this technology to make him look like the U.S. president, so people believe that he is the U.S. president, even though the real U.S. president is held hostage somewhere, and he's actually running the country himself. Um, so basically, because he's now the president, he orders the GI Joes from the first film, which is actually a new platoon of full of new characters for this movie. So in some ways, this movie is both a sequel and a reboot because they continue off the first movie, but they go in a different direction than the first film did. So the GI Joes are assigned to kind of this last minute mission um, overseas, kind of near Afghanistan, and they get the task done, and there's an attack that happens overnight, and it's from Cobra, and they don't know it's from Cobra quite yet, and so basically, and this really isn't a spoiler because they actually show this in the trailer, and it's a part of the storyline also. So basically the remaining members, which is pretty much Dwayne Johnson, this new character who I think is called Lady Jane is what they call her. Um, this other guy, and Bruce Willis wasn't in this situation, but he actually plays Joe Colton, who the GI Joe name came from, who helps them out throughout the movie. And I don't want to talk about Channing Tatum too much because that might be a potential spoiler for the movie if I do talk about him. Um, Basically, the remaining Joes who survived the attack have to go back to the U.S. and stop the fake U.S. president, the guy from Cobra who's pretending to be the U.S. president, from succeeding with this nuclear weapon plan that he has in mind that could potentially destroy the Earth if he has his way with these nuclear weapons. Um, because there's this huge world leader thing going on, and so basically the world would end if this whole thing with the world leaders went completely wrong the way the fake U.S. president hopes that it would. So the Joes have to go back to the U.S. and they have to do whatever they can to stop the fake president from succeeding. So that's about as much as really the plot goes. So it's not a very story heavy kind of film. But if you're into action films, if you liked the first film, if you just like action movies in general, this is definitely the kind of film to go see. So for the positives, you guys, Dwayne Johnson and Bruce Willis, I thought they brought more energy and fun into this movie. They definitely made the GI Joe universe, the whole film universe of GI Joe. They just made it more fun. They made it a lot more entertaining and enjoyable than the first film was. The character Storm Shadow, who was kind of that white ninja in the first movie, we get to see him at some points with the full ninja suit on, but for the most part, he doesn't have the ninja suit on throughout the movie. But his name was Storm Shadow. I did look that up before filming this review, so I know that that's his name. I felt his character was improved upon in this film. He was just really fun to watch. He was given a lot of great action scenes to work with. I just had a lot more fun watching this character in this sequel than I did in the first movie. Um, There was also a scene where I didn't see this in 3D. I saw a 2D showing of this film, where he throws like shuriken at an enemy in one scene, and like you see it break apart as you know that the they kind of do like a slow mo effect to represent that it's a slow motion effect while he's throwing it. Just a lot of really interesting things they did with this character this time around. I thought the action scenes in this was very good. Definitely entertaining. It didn't feel like it was, forced in here. It really felt like there was a lot of scenes in here where action was almost needed in order to tell the story, or in order to make these characters come out of these situations that they ran into throughout the film. Uh, Great use of ninjas in here. Definitely a much better use of ninjas than in the first movie. First movie, they were just kind of thrown into this military plot, and it just really didn't fit in the first movie. This time around, they managed to make it fit both the military side of the story and the ninja side of the story. And how they did that was like, there'd be scenes in the U.S. and like places in Japan and China that had all this stuff go on, and somehow that character would lead into like the U.S. scenes, or the Afghanistan scenes somehow, or there are scenes in here that's focused on the Cobra characters, kind of how that worked in with those Cobra characters. So the way that they handled it, I thought was very well done. So that they definitely used the ninja characters a lot better in this movie. I thought the villains in this film were much better than they were in part one. In part one, they were just kind of generic villains. They're just kind of really cheesy makeup, really cheesy, really cheesy goals in mind. In this film, they actually had a lot more realistic goals, or even if they weren't realistic goals, they definitely had, the intentions that you might remember from like the GI Joe TV show or something like that. So it was just more accurate to the source material, and if not the source material, at least there was some form of realism to it. I thought this film, like I said, was just overall more entertaining, and there was a lot more fun one-liners in this film. For the negatives, you guys, I thought some of the editing in here was very unusual. It was just one of those things where like it'd be a scene in the U.S. with the Joes, then it'd go to Cobra, then go back to the Joes. So it was just kind of all over the place. It was kind of like back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it's just, after a while, you're almost wondering, what's the film trying to focus on here? It's almost after a while, it's kind of hard to um, distinguish what the main focus of the film is, because they're just kind of focusing on all these characters, and you really wish they could at least just choose one or two and just focus on those two rather than having eight different subplots and then eventually putting them together. The way they handled it was fine. It just kind of got overwhelming after a while. I thought the ending in the film, without giving it away, was very sloppy. It was definitely yeah, I definitely had the impression they were definitely trying to wrap things up very quickly, and how they did it was, rather than keeping that realistic tone that we saw earlier in the film, or like I said, that kind of GI Joe TV show feeling. It was just really quickly resolved situations, or really quickly resolved technology to really cheat the story. Just a really sloppy ending, I felt. I guess another problem with the ending too is there was this character that was really intelligent throughout the film, and near the end he became stupid. So I didn't like that route either. RZA's makeup in here was very laughable. He played the character decently, but when you see him throughout the movie, you just can't help but laugh because like his makeup and costume is just so bad. It definitely had like a cheesy 1950s samurai feeling to it. Um, it was just, I couldn't help but laugh every time I saw him in this movie, and I'm sure that wasn't the intention. Um, so whoever did his hair, makeup, and hair should have done a better job, because I really think, um, because this film definitely had a more serious tone to it. It was funny at times, like it was intended to be funny at times, but his character really didn't fit in this film. I felt he played the role fine for what he had to work with, but it just didn't. His makeup and his costume didn't fit the theme of the film very well. Um, Bruce Willis, I felt, needed more screen time. Like I said, he played General Joe Colton, who the GI Joe name came from, according to the storylines, plot, and what they explain. Um, he just needed more screen time. I felt. I mean, I loved the his portrayal of Joe Colton. I thought he, like I said, he like kind of like Dwayne the Rock Johnson. He brought more energy and fun to the franchise. And if there's a third one, I'm sure he'll bring just as much fun and energy to the role. But yeah, I think he just needed more screen time. I just wanted to see the guy do more things in this movie. If you're going to use Bruce Willis, use Bruce Willis. Um, this film is very action heavy. There's almost too much action scenes in this film. Uh, like I said, what they made was fine, and the action scenes they provided us in this film was fine also. But there was just so much action after a while, like kind of like what my cousin and I were talking about when we left the theater. There was just so much action in this movie, you almost forget about the storyline after a while. I almost had to think to myself, okay, what was the storyline of this movie? Um, that's fine. I just think as far as making a better film goes, I think the film definitely could have benefited just from focusing on storyline a little bit more. Maybe have a bigger plot than just, oh, well, the president put these Joes in a bad situation. They got out of it. Now they have to stop the president from stopping this nuclear weapon thing, and then we'll just focus on the action scenes. Um, you know, Probably could have done a little bit more than that. I think, because they got so many promising players like Dwayne Johnson and Bruce Willis and, RZA's not too big, but, you got some people, you got some bigger people this time around. And, you introduced us to these new characters, and it just would have been more interesting to see. Well, I guess here's a good example with the Lady Jane character who's new to this universe for this story. I mean, they talked about her living up to her father's reputation, her always trying to impress her father, and she came from a very military family, and I would have liked to have seen more backstories like that. I mean, because those scenes were so awesome, because we got to learn more about those characters. It was just more fun to watch after a while. But overall, guys, I give GI Joe Retaliation an 8 out of 10. It is a good film. It could have been a lot better, obviously, but it's a huge improvement over the first film, which is saying something. Um, it's a fun action film. It's definitely a dumb, fun kind of movie, but nonetheless, it's fun. Um, so GI Joe Retaliation, if you like the first film, if you like action movies, it's worth a try. Don't expect the next Dark Knight with this film. It's not that good, um, but it might be worth a view.